Chris Voss gave me a huge 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon, and I'm grateful to him for bringing you today's video. Kona rescue Beastie versus Shanna, Kambal, and Sigarda. I do have access to the new cards a week early thanks to being part of the creator program, so don't go getting your hopes up if you play Magic Online. We have a 1-lander, which is, as ever, an easy mulligan. Okay, and that is a 2-lander thanks to the MDFC land here, so we can go 3 visits into more ramps, so we will try this one. Draw into Kodama. We're going to draw into a lot of heavy hitters during this gameplay, I imagine, because it's a bit of a camel toe mana curve. Really like the basics from the new Duskmourn set as well, especially this forest. Looks really, really good. The Bant player holding up blue mana, so hopefully not going to negate us or anything here. Obviously cast the 3 visits. Did draw into a 3rd land, so we can at least get down the Relic of Legends next turn. So should be able to get our commander down quite quickly. A Temple Garden is shocked into play and gets an additional land drop this turn. That is Castle Ardenvale. Our opponent seems insistent on playing cards that are unrecognisable, although I do really like the art on this Temple Garden as well. Skipping through Kambal's turn, we see the first commander in Shanna, Purifying Blade. Right, an Ancient Tomb we draw into. Does that change anything? I don't think it does. Does mean that we can hold up Beast Within if we go for Relic of Legends. I don't really want to play the commander and just have it sat there not doing anything. I don't think I want to use Beast Within this aggressively either though, so I'll drop a forest and we'll play the Relic of Legends. And this way we can get our commander down next turn, hopefully tap it to the Relic of Legends, now that we don't need to get Summoning Sickness away from our Kona. And I'm thinking we get down Soul of the Harvest before Kodama, because I'd like to get Kodama down into the Soul of Harvest to maximise card draw, because we want to be getting lots of creatures cantripping. There's a lot of cantrip effects like this in the deck, because obviously if we're going to dump all our permanents into play with something like Kodama and our commander, then we're going to empty our hand quite quickly. See another commander in Sigarda, so be interesting to see if Kambal wants to use a board wipe. No, it is 3 commanders in a row, so we're the ones who are being a filthy nonconformist. And the Shanna, yeah, is obviously going to swing in towards us, so you would assume he's going for some card draw, because he will have the lifelink damage go off here, although full grip of 7 in hand, but is going through to the end step, so tapping out into the Shanna, no leaving mana up, so could be a Swords for our commander. And decides instead to cycle an Ash Barrens to get a land into hand, so that was a forest that he went for, and we'll have to discard 3 to hand size. Discards more lands, is just after the basics apparently, so we will go through the draw step, see if that affects what we play this turn. A Sakura Tribelder, I don't think so. So let's drop the Ancient Tomb and go for our commander. So that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4 mana held up, but we do want to tap down the Kona this turn. So I think we're best just not surprising our opponents. They're tapped out anyway, and we're up against white players, so I don't know how useful a Mithril Coat is going to be, but might as well go for it here. Like I said, we want the commander tapped during the second main phase anyway. Could have gone for Kodama into play, then played the Mithril Coat afterwards and got down Sakura Tribelder for free, but all this is happening without Soul of the Harvest in play. So like I said before, we want the creatures to be seeing the Soul of the Harvest if we can help it. So during the second main, our commander triggers and we get that into play. So a very constructive first 4 turns for us here. Going to be in a tricky spot if we don't manage to keep this available to us though. A Sword of Feast and Famine is pro-green, so we weren't going to be able to block a flyer anyway. We don't have any reach unless we get the Kodama into play. And that swings into the right against the Bant player, who is drawing a lot of cards. Should be easy for him to discard to that. And will untap his lands as well, so has 5 mana left available. Discarded the forest that he tutored for previously. And that's an interesting one. I wouldn't play this outside of a mono-coloured deck, but I don't suppose it matters if you play it in multicoloured. So it takes the Throne of Eldraine straight into Mangara the Diplomat. Felmire I am happy to see come down as a land. Not as happy to see a Winds of Abandon though, so that is 2 mana onto our commander. We will grab ourselves a forest We can at least play our commander into Soul of the Harvest though, which will go back into our command zone. So we'll have 1, 2, 3 mana left to us once Kona hits play again. And then we'll get Kodama into play, which is an additional mana with the Relic of Legends. The Shanna going in towards the Mangara this time. So they can just trade lifelink damage with each other, I think. Yep, it's 4 toughness to 3 toughness. So each of them just gaining a bit of life. And again, going straight through to the end step to tap 3 into the Shanna. Draw some cards, goes up to 9. Okay, Manglehorn isn't the worst either. Especially if we've got the sword to get rid of, so maybe we could play Manglehorn into the Kodama, holding up Beast Within. Probably going to be an intelligent idea as well, but definitely want Kona into play again. And once again, Kambal holding up, yep, has his eye on us, a reprieve. So that goes back into our hand instead at least. Might as well just go for the Sakura Tribe Elder, see if we can draw into a land. That is our second spell, so Mangara, drawing a card. Whilst we are being held at bay, at least our opponents aren't going to see us as quite as much of a threat, hopefully. Alright, Zendikar Resurgent will be good to cheat down on the next turn, so we will have... yeah, we'll likely have 5 untapped basics into Zendikar Resurgent, which is a lot of mana. So we could empty our entire hand and still carry on going if Soul of the Harvest is held up, so... Sakura Tribe Elder, a good blocker against lifelinkers because we can chump block and then sack in response so they can't deal damage to it. Not going to be reactionary and swing in down the middle with Soul of the Harvest because I do want to hold back blockers so that we can hopefully tap down Ancient Tomb a few more times. We're already at the lowest life total. Surveil Land for the 2-colour player and decides to throw away a Divine Visitation. And there's another one, Sword of War and Peace. So who's got the most cards? This player's going to consistently have the most cards in hand, so could deal a lot of damage with that. Equipping onto the Voltron Sigarda, which now has pro white, black, red and green. Still going in at the Bant player, thankfully. I have a feeling he might come in at us there. So a Reality Shift, the one colour he doesn't have protection from. And yeah, I said in a previous video, during one of these Talking Head videos, that for some reason blue has spot removal now, like it doesn't have enough, so luckily had the exact answer he needed to get rid of that Sigarda. A Mentor of the Meek after that. Not sure if we've seen any cards played off the top for this opponent yet. Now let's see if Kambal has any more toys to throw in our direction. A Knight of the White Orchid, definitely going to grab another land with that. Followed by a Surveil Land from his hand. And throws away Teysa, Orzhov Scion. I've never seen that artwork before. One of my favourite commanders, this one. Alright, Mangara draws a card because that's the second spell, and it is a Ghostly Prison, making it more difficult to attack in over there. Attack's a bit more difficult for Shanna now. Trying his luck to the left. Not sure what he's really eager to draw into. Deciding to double block. He has a Manifest Creature, which clearly he doesn't feel as though he can flip. Mangara, again a 2-4. So reorders the blocks, gets rid of the Manifest Creature. And we see Venser Shaper Savant, which is going to bounce it back, you assume? Or maybe bounces back the Mangara so that he can blow up the Manifest Creature. It's probably going to be a better idea, isn't it? Yeah, that's exactly what he's doing. So managing to get some decent removal off there. And it was a forest that was manifested. Speaking of which, we'll go and grab a forest with Sakura Tribe Elder. Seeing blue mana be held up again, I wouldn't mind seeing our opponent tap out there, that's great. So going back up to 7 in hand. So already down to 75 cards in his library. Alright, so let's see if we can land Kona for any length of time. I like seeing the collective resistance, that's good. Got a few means of protecting our commander in this deck for reasons that we've already seen. So Kona into play again, we will cantrip because somehow we've managed to keep hold of the Soul of the Harvest all this time. Alright, a Disciple of Freya Lease we could draw a bunch of cards with, which might help us to further go off. So I think I'm just going to have to waste the mana on the Relic of Legends so that we can maximise the amount of mana that we've got on the lands, because we'll be getting down the enchantment here. Otherwise I'll probably equip up the Mithril Coat, even though, like I said before, we're up against a bunch of white players. Probably a dead card. So we'll go straight through to the second main, going to ignore combat here, which will have our commander trigger. Throw any permanent into play, we'll make it the mana doubler. and further means of cantripping. So we want to definitely hold up at least 2 for the collective resistance. Let's go Kodama of the East Tree here. So we draw a card on cast with the Zendikar Resurgent, which isn't quite as good as what I imagine Soul of the Harvest and Garruk's Uprising and the like will be. But we draw a card. I wouldn't mind seeing a basic here to the Soul of the Harvest. It is instead a Seeker's Chariot. We get another means of tapping down our commander there at least. I had no intention of having to attack with this in order to tap it down. So in that case, do we want to get this down as a land? Because we'll be able to go Garruk's Uprising. Yeah, I'll try getting that down as a bolt land. So that triggers Kodama of the East Tree, which we don't have a land to make, so say no to that. Throw down the Garruk's Uprising, which will cantrip upon entry, thanks to us having a creature with 4 power or greater. Triggers the Kodama. We put that on the stack first, just in case we draw something relevant with the enchantment. And it is a Kogler. Did say that we draw into a lot of expensive stuff this game. So let's get down a free Manglehorn, because it's a 3-mana permanent that just entered. Soul of the Harvest triggers again. We've already made our land for the turn. Manglehorn, tempted as I am to go after the throne, I think we need to get rid of the pro-green. And all the artifacts are going to come into play tapped here, which might be of some relevance. Alright, do we want to get down Lightning Greaves? Probably going to be a good idea. We can tap down Kodama in order to do that. And if someone blows up the Lightning Greaves, we can still hold up the collective resistance this way. So again, Kodama not doing anything with the Lightning Greaves, but throw that onto our commander. Well worth getting in. And we will pass the turn at that. Only problem now is we've got Lightning Greaves in the deck, which I do think about. I don't just automatically put this in because it is Shroud. Obviously Hexproof is better than Shroud. Mangara into play again. This is a target creature, gains Hexproof and Indestructible, so might regret getting down the Greaves, but we're protected against swords and stuff here. Mentor of the Meat triggers on that, and they do pay the cost in order to draw, going up to 5 cards in hand. And there's Azusa, Lost But Seeking, allows them into additional lands. Just using that as a means of cantripping with the Mentor of the Meek does get them into an additional land. So able to crack the Myriad Landscape finally, and go up a land with that. And ending the turn with 4 cards in hand. Okay, a Witch Enchanter. I bet is going to go onto our Zendikar Resurgent. Yes, it does. So we're not doing anything with the single mana. Might as well float a couple of mana here. And depending on if he tries to pass through the turn here, I might be reactionary. He's really coming after us, this player, which is fair enough because we are going to really start giving our opponents a headache if he leaves us alone for much longer, but I think I'm going to punish him because I've been letting him get away with too much here, and we want that Ghostly Prison out of the way anyway, if we're going to start trampling through damage over there. Finally down to fewer cards in hand though, 4 cards for the Orzhov player. Shanna, of course, still at a full grip. Hasn't had any ramp this game though, I don't think. 7 mana, can always be a Cyclonic Rift though. Instead, it is a Gilded Lotus, so 5 mana available. And this player didn't gain any life there, but is holding up double blue, so always have to be wary of the players that are holding up blue mana. And we don't have our double mana anymore, and we've got more creatures in play than anyone else, so Defense of the Heart for after the potential board wipe really. So we can cheat down a Kogler. Do we want to swing in? Could always hardcast the Kogler, I suppose. See what we draw into. So gaining 2 mana from the relic when we tap down our Kona. And we'll try to get Kogler into play. I'm not sure who I'm going to fight here. Yeah, had a feeling that that might get countered. So Arcane Denial, that's fine. Means that we draw a couple of cards at least. It does unfortunately mean that we're not drawing any cards though. So we're just going to have to cheat down the Seeker's Chariot and then hold up Beast Within. We can tap down 3 mana to re-equip the Mithril Coat. That does mean taking Shroud off our commander though, which is risky against the white player, so do we see a board wipe next turn or not is the question. I'll not swing in here, and again continue to hold back the blockers, so our commander triggers again, and the Seeker's Chariot can come into play, which will trigger the Kodama, so we'll get down the Defense of the Heart for free as well. That does mean that Kambal is going to get those as well. So gets a couple of cats into play and will drain us. Arcane Denial will trigger during the next upkeep, so we get to draw a couple of cards here. Hopefully a creature. Just clearing 2 lands off the top. This is exactly the scenario that I didn't want to be in. Sol Ring for the humans player. Does come into play tap though, thanks to our Manglehorn. Alright, an Angel of Indemnity is a really good one. Return a target permanent, mana value 4 or less, from graveyard to battlefield. Yeah, they've got the Sword of Feast and Famine, so that might be worth putting the Beast Within onto, depending on who they attack. Throws it on Mangara, suggests that they do intend on attacking here. And they do swing in at us, so could go for Beast Within here. I think it's going to be worth doing, because we're at quite a low life total, especially compared to everyone else, so can block the Mangara once it doesn't have protection from green anymore. So once again, Kambal finally, after sitting around all game, is starting to get these tokens, and a 2/4 lifelink can easily be blocked by one of our big creatures. Sarah Paragon into play after that, and I think they did play a land from the graveyard there. Yeah, they went for the Myriad Landscape again, so that will be exiled when they decide to crack it. And Alenda the Dusk Rose is a scary one, so going to have to be careful with all these tokens starting to hit play. Our opponents are definitely playing a lot of creatures though. The Orzhov player kind of didn't have a choice with the tokens, but yeah, it looks as though we may well be able to trigger Defense of the Heart after all. Every chance the BAMP player can answer it though. Open the armory, searches for an aura or an equipment, likely a means of evasion for the Shanna. And with that, they tutored out an Angelic Gift, so that's flying. We do still have our Reacher available to us, it cantrips upon entry. Then a Thran Dynamo, 6 cards in hand, and is definitely starting to get into the rocks here, but Manglehorn again doing great work, making sure that they can't tap this down for 3 mana as soon as it comes in, which might have caught our opponent out. Okay, Kenrith's Transformation removes reach from our creature. Yeah, suppose we just allow that. We'll have to take a hit for 3 from the commander. They do draw a card to that, and swing in at us, knocking us down to 21. Okay, so as I said, it looks as though we're going to be able to get down this Defense of the Heart after all. The Shanna deciding not to tap for mana, so again, might be, I don't know, Offer You Can't Refuse, a Swan Song, Source to Plowshares, could be anything really. So the defense triggers at the beginning of the upkeep, and we definitely want to be refilling our hand here, so let's make our opponent's lives miserable, seeing as how they keep swinging in at us. Make it Vorinclex, and definitely want the Regal Force in place so that we can refill our hand. I'll actually animate the Asika's Chariot here, I think. So immediately draw 4 cards from the cantrips, and then we'll draw a bunch from Regal Force as well. Actually, I think we're going to have too many cards in hand by quite a long shot, aren't we? It's a good time to get rid of the Kodama of the East Tree, although we might be able to remove the Kenrith's Transformation. I won't bother animating the Chariot. We were held off a turn though, so it might be all our opponents needed. 8 cards drawn to the Regal Force. And they do have chance to deal with the Vorinclex while we've got double mana during the upkeep, because obviously the mana isn't as useful to us during the upkeep. Didn't draw into anything too incredible, although Azori's Predation would be a nice wrath. A late inclusion this, I think it was one of the last cards I added to the deck. Glad I did now. Right, so some balancing issues I think. We don't have all that we drew into, and somehow wasn't all that incredible. I'm not sure the Kodama of the East Tree would have done a whole lot for us actually, apart from get additional lands into play. So it might be worth drawing even more with the Return of the Wild Speaker. So I think they'll counter this if I go for that, which opens up the way to definitely get down Azori's Predation. So let's go for a Sorcery Speed, draw cards equal to the greatest power. Priority being held up by the BAMP player, as you would expect. Decides to allow it, alright. So traverse the Outlands. If we can keep Vorinclex in play, it's probably going to be a good idea. I like Portal to Phyrexia as well, we can cheat that into play. So that's more like it. Let's try this Azori's Predation. For each creature our opponent's control, we get a 4/4, and it fights each creature our opponent's control. There we go, what did we say? An Offer You Can't Refuse, so tried to bait them with that. I'm amazed that they let it through, to be honest, but yeah, definitely well played, so we don't get down the Azuri's Predation, which could have really unlocked the game for us. I think the Portal to Phyrexia is still going to do some damage though. Draw into the Great Henge, and the tokens that we just generated are going to come down under Kambal's side of the field as well. So get drained for 1, we go down to 18. Just play a forest, and then might as well play the Great Henge because it's only 2 mana. Oh, I actually overpaid for that, whoops. Well, I wanted to go for the Traverse the Outlands while we've got the chance anyway. So the additional mana we need is on the Kona. Could easily forget to tap the Kona before you go through to the second main. Play Traverse the Outlands while we've got a lot of power in play. We might strip our entire library of basics actually. We will have 3 left in the library, which I don't think is going to be relevant, but I will try to remember. And then is this an instant? No, that's a sorcery. So it's another means of tapping, but we can take out a creature with that if we want to. We've got Reachers that we need to worry about is the problem, so that's a 5/5, which is probably worth getting rid of, although it has Eternalize, which they can afford. Or Encore even, not Eternalize. So it might be best leaving that alone, against my better judgment. Maybe go for the Sarah Paragon instead, and then it makes the Portal to Phyrexia better as well. So 4 toughness will make the Regal Force fight that. And this way we've still got the Boseiju held up as well, which might be of relevance against equipment. That is the first creature dies to Elenda. And again, not going to bother attacking here. Of course, Boseiju could be used to get rid of the Kenrith transformation and open up the Kodama again, but drawing the cards we've drawn, I don't think, amazingly, we're going to get that much use out of it. So Portal to Phyrexia comes in for free thanks to our commander on the second main. And they need to be careful what they sacrifice here, because I think we can go for any graveyard with this. Yes, it's from a graveyard during our upkeep. So most of the board is wiped, unfortunately. Elenda is left in play. Got plenty of chump blocks for that though. May well go for the Vorinclex, having the Lightning Greaves on it as well, because I think that that's going to eat removal as soon as our opponents can manage it. So let's go Greaves over onto the Praetor. And I suppose we might as well go Mithril Coat onto the Commander, because we can still tap down Kodama for that, and we'll crack a couple of treasure, and still afford the Boseiju like I said before. Again, maybe worth putting that on Vorinclex instead, seeing as how it's going to be such headache for our opponents. So with 15 cards in hand, we just discard a load of basics here. Our opponent's being forced to tap lands into the Vorinclex, and for some reason a green creature can freeze lands, and the Nyxbloom Ancient might be worth actually tapping into for. So that counts as permanents, I think. So they can tap this down for a bunch, or is it just lands? Yeah, it's a permanent with Nyxbloom Ancient. So drawing 2 cards to the Throne of Eldraine, has 4 lands left up and 4 cards in hand, so 3, 6, 9 and 12 mana available. And then played a 5th land. And there we see Sigarda into play again. So we've managed to kind of buy ourselves a turn against this player. Problem is we've got a bunch of cards in hand and we've still got the sword to contend with, so I think this gives all permanents hexproof, doesn't it? Yeah, I think we have to go for Boseiju onto the sword now, because we're going to take a big hit to this. Successfully blowing that up, our opponent will get a land out of the deal though. Playing out a Burnished Heart as well. I'm not sure it is really worth freezing down your lands for a Burnished Heart personally, although they can crack it and get some lands in tap that will untap during the next turn. So it looks like that's what he's doing, and it's another creature that dies to the Elenda, which is now an 11/11. Managed to cast himself a Wren and 7, so was that -3 to get the Tree Folk in? Client's going really clunky now. Yeah, that's a 14/14 hexproof reach. Noteworthy that the token came into play over here as well from the Wren and 6. It's only a 6/6 though, thanks to the lack of lands. So again, we're in a similar position to what we were in before. We're pretty much relying on the Portal to Phyrexia to get a creature into play for us again, really, because we don't actually have any to cast, amazingly. So I think the balance of creatures isn't all that great because I had to put vehicles in the list. Maybe I've got too many tap effects. Anyway, the Orzhov player being forced to tap down a bunch of mana as well. Might be some mass reanimation on the way, or a one-sided board wipe, something like that. Okay, Meat Hut Massacre where X is 6. So once again the Mithril Coat not going to help us. Looks like we're going down here. because the Elender is about to get huge. So yeah, just unlucky really. With our means of indestructible and bits of hexproof and stuff, we're not really going to do a whole lot about minusing down and exile effects and stuff like that we've seen this game. But I think we've shown off what we can do with the commander and why the Orzhov player was so scared of us for most of the game. And I have learnt something about the deck as well, which is good. So all those creatures go down. The Meat Hut Massacre triggers for a bunch of life loss. And I think it's about 15 triggers on the Elender. I have a feeling that the game's going to go on for quite a while longer yet though, because our opponents are still at high life totals, and the Bant player is going to buy himself a turn against these two because they've had their lands frozen, praying that the client doesn't crash. Yeah, I had a feeling that'd happen. Yeah, apologies everyone, there was a lot more in that game, like I said, thanks to these three being able to play it out, but that many triggers on the stack, and I think we were all auto-yielded to all of those triggers. If you've got one player on Magic Online that doesn't auto-yield to them, then you can kind of flick through them manually. It does take longer, and that's the type of thing that always depreciates my clock further down than everyone else's. But if I was going down anyway, there was no need for me to bother with that there. So while I've put a warning up at the beginning of the video, apologies to you all again for that, but this is Magic Online, not a whole lot I can do about it. Got to see something from a new cool commander though, so hopefully you all enjoyed it regardless. Massive thank you to the patrons who support the channel financially. You can do that yourself via the link in the description below. Big thank you if you decide to do that as well. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.